All right, so in this video, I'm going to answer one of the most worst thing that could happen to you. Every single lead that is coming through the funnel is just garbage. All right, I get this question asked multiple times a month with our client that we helped in scale. They're like, hey, my leads kind of suck right now. Or even clients that are just not even clients of yet, that are prospects that are just talking in our conversation, on our DMs or whatever it may be. They're like, hey, I tried to run ads and it didn't work. Well, one of the first things I just want to even preface is, what is the sample size that we're talking about here? Because this is a mistake I see time and time again. Is somebody spending around $300 or $500, hell, even $1,000 in a brand new ad account and saying none of the leads are qualified? Well, one, first you got to spend a little bit of money to even identify the sample, to identify this not qualified with a large enough sample size. That's the first thing we got to do. So once you're spending enough money and you got, let's say 50 leads or 100 leads, then we can make a decision. But if you haven't gotten to that point, if you're basing it off 20 leads that came into the funnel, you need to spend a little bit more to actually know what's going on. And also, which I will talk about in a little bit, depending on how much is the cost of your program, will dictate how much you can actually spend to test these things out. All right. And if you don't know who I am, my name is Javi, and I literally have this YouTube channel to help credit and funding companies scale by implementing the exact systems and marketing strategies I learned to scale my own funding company to 300K per month. At this point, we helped around 285 students. Just this year alone, we sent, and this video was filmed on June, we sent eight 50K month awards and 100K month awards. So if you're a credit and funding company and you're willing to scale by implementing the correct marketing strategies, funnels, tracking systems, and sales, pretty much sales process, click the link below, schedule a call with us, and we will help you implement those things. Now let's get back to the video. So if you're saying my leads suck, I would say to you, well, welcome to cold traffic. That's usually what cold traffic is. Not all the leads are going to be extremely qualified. As a matter of fact, over 90% of these leads are not going to be qualified. Okay, so you just got to understand that in cold traffic, not everything is going to be the creme of the creme filet mignon. It's not going to happen. But the good news is that I spent like 90% of my daily budget, and we're spending more than $1,500 a day every single day on ads. I would say 90% is cold traffic. Like sometimes you go a little bit higher because I have multiple retargeting campaigns, but I would say that's barely a 10 to 50% of the actual budget. Like some of the retargeting ads are retargeting people who book calls. Some of the retargeting ads are retargeting people who landed in the landing page but didn't book calls, and then some people are just retargeting in our DMs. But that's just a small percentage of our daily ad spend. Okay, so don't mainly it's all cold traffic, but you just got to have the right system in place. You got to know your KPIs, and you got to have the right things in place for you to stomach and understand that, hey, this is just cold traffic. So let's get back into it. So welcome to cold traffic. That's just the name of the beast, like it's just the there's no way around it. Okay. So if all leads suck, let's say right now you got like 100 sample size, 50, around there, 50 to 100, like all leads sucks. One of the first thing I would do is, okay, and a client asks me, hey, Javi, I spent, let's say, $500, $1,000, $2,000 on ads, and every single lead was unqualified. I'm like, all right, so let's go to your ad copy and your ad. This is very important. Depending on how direct in your ad is and how direct you are in your copy will dictate the quality of clients. And something that you could do is go to different multiples of call out. Let's say for your clients, if you're in the credit or funding space, let's say somebody in the real estate field, you can be like, if you're a real estate investor and you're trying to get your next piece of investment, and you're looking for 100 grand of funding and get your credit up to whatever it needs to be so you can make your next investment, click the below and schedule a call. And that example, there's multiple call outs, right? So I'm trying to almost disqualify anybody that doesn't have those things. And of course, even then, more than half of the people are still not going to show up. So that's why, not going to show up, not going to be qualified. I'm sorry. So that's why you still need to know your KPIs and numbers, even if you are super direct and super dialed in with your messaging. I'm going to show you kind of an example of with my own ads. There's an ad that I actually converted for us multiple times, right? And it's literally credit repairs, learn how to make 10K per client. So my first level of call out is credit repairs, right? Who want to learn how to make 10K per client. So it's like I'm only talking to a specific set of entrepreneurs. One, they need to be an entrepreneur, of course, a business owner that owns a credit repair company that wants to learn how to make more per client, right? And then I'm telling them switch your marketing angle and make more while working less. So I'm pretty much saying, hey, do you want to add funding as a service to your existing credit repair company? So that's just like multiple layers in. It's like a niche of a niche of a niche in a sense, right? Because it's credit repair company that not only wants to learn how to add a high ticket offer, but it's also ready to scale. Okay, so that's what I mean. You got to be very direct in what your copy and your ad is, because the more direct you are, the better the quality, but usually a little bit higher the cost. And we could go on the cost in a little bit in a sec, but usually the cost is higher could translate to better quality. Not often, but that's something that you gotta have to keep in mind. Okay. Now the second thing is, okay, my ads are on point, my ad copy is on point, I am being pretty direct, right? Like this, no more I could be more direct about. Like you're pretty much saying, like you're doing like 5 levels of call out. You're like, this person with this and this and this and this and this and this. You're like, hey Javier, I'm like being very specific here, right? And I'm still getting shitty leads. Okay, so what qualifying systems do you have in your funnel? So the second step will be create systems to qualify, right? And when you work with us, there's something we already built with you. When you start working with us, we build you in pretty much your entire funnels and automation. So we build you those systems to qualify. But essentially what I mean by this is, what is the process that you have? So this would be kind of like a system. This is actually our system to be able to have them to show up, but this is like a qualifying system, right? It disqualifies some people depending on what they put in their application. So if your leads are really bad, right? What qualifying systems do you have? Like, are you being, do you have a lot of constraint in your application to have people to pretty much, you DQ them, you disqualify them? And that's not the case, then well, that's why you're getting a bunch of unqualified leads inside your funnel, because you have no qualifying mechanisms. So you need to have this in place. Now, again, this is almost like a double-edged sword, because if you have too much restrictions and too much like resistance for them to book a call, then your cost will go dramatically higher. But then again, if let's say for example your cost per book call is $500, which is a lot. Well, let's say it's your cost for qualified book call, which is even a better metric, because at least qualified book call is somebody who's actually qualified and showing up for the call. Let's say it's $500, right? But then you have a 30% closing rate. You can spend $1,500 to make $5,000 or $4 to $6,000 depending on your funding services. I mean, some of our clients are charging $10K, $12K, whatever. The point is, let's say if you spend even $2K, because you gotta your closing percentages is actually lower, it's maybe like 25 or whatever, so you gotta spend $2K. Well, if you spend $2K to make $6, you're golden, right? So if maybe you create a lot of qualifying systems and a lot of barrier for someone to book a call with you, and it's going, and your cost to even book a call goes higher as on the qualified goes up, that's a fair trade. So that's something to think about, right? Now, but back to the beginning, if you have no systems to qualify, well, make sure you have some systems to qualify, because that could be literally the main reason why your calendar is getting slammed with unqualified leads. Okay. Now, what is the third thing? The third is, what's the cost versus the cash on hand? Is the math thing. Okay. So I'm gonna give you an example in a second example. Oh, I wasn't even sharing. So my bad. So what's the cost versus the cash on hand is the math thing. Okay. That's pretty much the third thing I like to look at. And I'm gonna show you pretty much what I mean by this. What I mean by this is just, once you have, that's why I was saying you need to have at least a good sample size, because once you have a good at least 50 results, 30, 50, 100, your cost per result or your cost per lead, which is like pretty much the same thing, but you have at least something to base off this math off. Okay. So here's what I mean by this. So let's say your cost per lead is $20. Your cost per lead will be, if you have a VSL funnel, if you have a DM funnel, will be your cost per result. Okay. So let's say it's $20 times 100, that's $2,000. What is your lead to sell percentage? Right? This should be anywhere between 1 to 3%. Let's say it's at the lower end, right? It's 1%. If it's 1%, then you spend $2,000 to make $6,000. And this is if you're cash collecting the 6K up front. That's why you need to know your average cash on hand, which that's what we're going to talk about in the bottom real quick, because it's very important that depending on that metric, you can know how much you can spend. Okay. So if you already have 30 to 50 leads, you can start doing the math from now. I'm like, okay, how many do I got to get to finally make a conversion? And again, usually it's 1%, 1 to 3. If you get to a 3, you're a rock star. That's really good that's a really good KPI. But it's usually from one. I see from 1.8. Maybe the highest I've seen honestly is like a 2.1. But I see some people in different industries hit like a 3%. But let's just go round it up to just 1%. And depending on your cost per lead, you can be okay. If I get 100 leads, can I realistic have enough margins to make a profit? Okay. The second thing that we like to look at is your cost per book call. If your cost per book call is 300, right? We do simple math from there. Okay, Javi, I'm booking calls on average for $300. Okay, so let's do times 10. That's gonna be 3 grand. What is your closing rate? That's literally the next question I ask my clients. So based on your cost per book call and your closing rate and your show up rate, we do math from there. So if the average cost per book call is $300 times 10 is 3 grand, they have a 30% closing rate and they have 80% show up rate, which is beautiful. If that's the case, they're gonna close 2 grand, two clients at 6K each, which is, there you're printing money. This is ideally the best situation that you want to be in, a 30% closing rate and a 80% show up rate. Now, if you tell me, hey, Javi, is it really that hard to get 30% closing rate? Not really. You just gotta be good at it. If you're bad at it, you're gonna be below 20%. But we actually help clients to get over to a 60%. At the highest I've seen is almost like a 68% closing rate on some month, which is ridiculous. But 30%, 20 book calls a week will get you to a 6-figure month. Okay, so you can see like the math here. Math is, so if you're getting already get book calls, okay, even let's do some math. If your cost per book call is $300, if I get 10 people to, well, in this case, it'll be 80% show up rate. So eight are going to show up. If you close at 30%, you're going to close, let's say 2, right? So that will be the next thing. Then after that is, okay, what is, after you start closing deals and your average cash on hand, then it's how much am I cash collecting up front, right? Because here I'm putting 6K, but that you're getting paid upfront full. And that's usually not the case. Usually more than half are going to do a payment plan and actually give you 3K upfront, and then 3K, like they'll do a payment plan essentially. So the next thing would be, what's my cost to acquire and my average cash on hand. Okay, so if your cost to acquire a client is 1,500 and your average cash on hand is 3K, then I don't need to do the math for you there. You understand. And like average cash on hand, like I said, it's a split payment of the average contract value. Let's say 6 grand. You're actually let's say on average you're cash collecting 50% of your contract value, which let's say you're putting somebody on a payment plan of cutting their payments in half, right? So this is base case scenario. This is somewhere like our top like clients and top earners of our clients list and clients that we work with, all that good stuff. Like this is pretty much their metrics. Like the cost to acquire clients around 1,500 to maybe 1,800. The program price is anywhere between 7K to 10K, and they're cash collecting at least half of the payments, maybe sometimes like a 30% of the payment. But this is usually how it goes. They're actually making like 2 to 3 grand per sale that month, that day. Okay, now let me give you worst case scenario. Okay, this is like rough territory. Okay, so let's say your cost per lead or cost per result is $50. Now that if you times that to 100, that's $5,000 that you spent to talk to those 100 leads, right? And if you have a 1% conversion rate from lead to sale, right? That you really made $1,000. You made one sale and hope you got the paid in full, because if they did a payment plan here, you technically lost $1,000 to even get them through the door, right? Because it costs you pretty much it costs you 5,000 to get them through the door. So you literally, no, actually probably even more. You're probably even spending more on that. So like it's not good. It's not good. This is like worst case scenario. Your cost per lead is $50. It's costing you almost 5K to even make a sale. It's very bad. And unless you're cash collecting the whole thing up front, you're profiting $1,000. It's still rough, because the good thing about running ads, that if you have enough like AOV, like average cash on hand, pretty much, you can get some of that money back and put it back into ad spend and acquire your next client. Okay, so let's go the next worst scenario, which is book calls, and it's the same thing. If your cost per book call is $500, but then you have a 20% closing rate and a 50% show up rate, then again you spend 5 grand to only make $1,000, and again that's if they paid you in full. If not, you're technically losing like 2 grand to even get them to the door, or whatever. Well, no, actually you're losing if they, yeah, if you cash collect, no, if you cash collect just 3 grand, you're losing, yeah, 2 grand. It's just rough. Like, I've actually seen this scenario a couple times, but this is like after their first, you know, like, hey, I just spent my first $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 in ad spend. Like, this happens a lot, because the ad campaign is not fully I mean, not the ad campaign, just even the ads manager is not fully optimized, and this could happen over and over again, and that's okay. When you're starting brand new, you got to think about, like, hey, you're creating a brand new ad manager, you're creating a brand new, like, data systems. This thing needs to get used to who your deal client is, and the more data you give it, which is by you spending money and gathering more information and leaving the ads that do work on, is sending back signal back to the AI of Facebook. Hey, this is the ideal client that they want to work with, so keep bringing back the same ideal clients as it's already producing. But that's more advanced stuff, like we cover that in different videos. The last thing is, what is your cost to acquire and your average cash on hand, which is the same scenario as all of them. Like, if since this is pretty much what's happening, right? Like, it's $5,000, then you ideally, it's costing you $5 to acquire a client, and if your average cash on hand, hopefully, are paid in full, which again might not be, especially just starting off and you're not really good at sales, might not get the best paid in fulls. This is exactly what's going to happen. So it's a very reverse scenario. Okay, so but at least, if once you know you have his cash on hand, which I kind of skipped this part, but is that if you have 3K you have pretty much 3K to spend. Like, if you actually start cash collecting 3K and you're in scenario number one, right? You have about 3K to spend. Now, I'm not saying that always spend 3K to at least close a call, but close a deal, whatever. But at least you know how much budget you need and how much wiggle room you have. And ideally, everyone, like, this is, like, I know it's a tough pill to swallow. Like, you can spend up to the cost of the offer to test, right? If your offer price is $10,000, well, have a budget of at least $10,000 to test a bunch of ads to see what hits. Because even in one hit, you can make your money back right away. And if at least if you make your money back, you can narrow down on what's exactly working, so you can make more of what's already working, and it's not going to cost you again $10,000 just to get a sale. You get what I mean? I wouldn't take it that far too. Like, if your program price is 10,000, you should have already gotten a sale. Within, like, maybe 3 grand of ad spend. This if you're just starting off and you actually have some little bit of guidance. If you're doing all this brand new and this all is new to you, like ads manager, creating ads, tracking, then it's gonna be a bumpy ride. Prepare for the bumpy ride. But what can you do? But again, this is just a video for somebody who's already generating leads, and their cost keeps going higher and higher. And this is exactly what I would do, and what is, like, my mindset when somebody tells me, hey, my leads absolutely are garbage. Like, what do I do by this? What is the process and system and mindset that you go through when your leads are completely horrible? How do I fix this problem?